Hey guys, welcome to Heartcore, the Human Design Podcast. I'm Chell, that's Miko,
Hi, everyone.
and today we are telling you guys about our book recommendations. Everything that Miko's read, that I've listened to, and that we feel like can be helpful for you as well along your human design journey. So, let's tap into this. Of course, she's prepared with a slideshow, so books and more to start us off. Miko, what were some of these I'm sure are, your go-to books when you started learning about human design? Actually, question, how did you come to human design? I know you were on like this spiritual make yourself better journey, but what was the impetus where you were just like, yo, I should Google this?
So, my mom had introduced this probably 12 years ago. So, my brother had a human design reading back in the day, maybe even longer ago. And it was really interesting because my mom always brought us to astrologers, tarot readers, hand readers, or palmistry people. And one of them was a human design reader. I never went, but my brother went. And because she was trying to figure out our direction, what should we do in life? Because we were interested in a lot of different things and we didn't really have a clear direction. So my studies and interests are extremely vast and extremely wide. So going from photography to criminology to psychology to holistic health to, I don't know, it was a huge variety. And that's why she wasn't clear as to what we should study or what direction we should go into. And so she was trying to help us figure this out. And when she brought my brother to this human design reader, he was not very empathetic. He wasn't able to convey what my brother needed to hear in the words that my brother needed to hear them in. And within 15 minutes, I think, maybe 20 minutes, my brother got up and left. And he was like, nope, I'm not taking this. I can't listen to this a second longer, because he was just not able to reach him. And this was I think it was actually the only time that this guy mentioned. He said it's the only time that anyone has ever gotten up and left in one of my readings. So I also didn't really pursue it. My mom always has a few inklings. Like she's always like, okay, you should do yoga. And I ignored it for the longest amount of time. And then I fell in love with yoga. And she also said, you would be interested in human design. And I ignored it for quite some time. And until he's an acquaintance. So he was in school with me when I was 17, 18. And we had some contact, but we weren't really in close contact. He was a boyfriend of a close friend of mine back in the day. And at some point, he just came back up. That was before Corona. He came back up and he just talked for maybe a week or two. And in this week or two, he mentioned human design. So he invited me to a human design summit, and he said, you need to check this out. And this was my entrance into human design. And for everyone that doesn't know, I am a projector. So being invited into something is amazing to start any kind of relationship, and I do consider this being some sort of a relationship. And then also having to decipher whether this is the right invitation for you or not. And at that point in time, it finally felt right, even though it crossed my path several times before then. But this was the time I was like, okay, I'm going to dive deeper into this. And it was the right summit as well, because they were talking about how you can apply it with kids, how you can apply it with adults, how you can apply it for relationships in many, many different forms. Long story long, this is how I got into human design. And since then, I've just spent nearly every day just reading or going deeper into the subject by looking at YouTube videos. We didn't actually mention YouTube in today's thing, but that's also an option apart from podcasts. So we're going to cover some books that are important to us, Facebook groups, podcasts, and where you can just find some information for you to dive deeper into the subject. How did you come across human design?
First and foremost, your mom is a badass, and I feel like she and I need to meet in person because she sounds freaking. I mean, I know she's awesome, but like, I didn't know that she was the one who like trickled it into your world over a decade ago, which is so dope. I think I've mentioned it on here before, but I was in a like business coaching group, and one of the other women in that space was a human design coach, and she had like gotten into it maybe like a year and a half before, and was very much in her journey through it and then helping other people along the way too. So that's how I got into it and started using it in business like after that as well, just because I saw the benefits of it. So that was a short story short.
Well done. My mom would also love to meet you.
Set up the place, set up the time. I'm here for it.
Okay. So what would be some of your recommendations? Do you have anything from the get-go that you want to share?
Yeah. So I think a bit of my journey into it was I started listening to podcasts because that's my favorite means of educating myself. I don't think I watched any YouTube videos, which is interesting. I think I also read blog posts on how to better understand the chart itself, which that's probably the most challenging part, right? Like looking at the chart and being like, what am I looking at? Although, once I started to listen to more podcasts, it made more sense and I did feel like I was actually being seen. So I'm pretty sure I started with this podcast, the Human Design Podcast by Emma Dunwoody. She's Australian, so I can't listen to her on 2x because it's challenging enough to understand on 2x. This podcast, she's been doing it for probably like 5 or 6 years now, like pre-COVID, and it has every topic you can possibly imagine. So if you like go to this podcast, search whatever, most likely she has an episode on it, which is really cool. She's also no, I don't remember her profile, but she's an MG, so a manifesting generator. So please take her perspectives with that in mind, right? And I think that that's really cool about podcasters. Like Miko and I provide two different perspectives, but we have the same profile, right? So if you're a 6'2", you probably relate to us and what we say, which is kind of cool. So what I find cool about podcasters or even YouTubers is look up their design if they don't share it, or if they do share it, awesome, right? Like latch on to that because it can be helpful to just see a different perspective. She also brings people on who have different perspectives. A lot of the time when I was listening back in like 2020, 2021, a lot of them were her past clients who were on the show. So give that a noodle, give that a listen. This podcast was really good. Get past the part where she's like selling her product, because a lot of people do that, right? So get past that, and the information is really solid. The next podcast, this is probably like the OG of human design podcasts, the De Luna Human Design. They also have like a human design like instructor situation. Basic information is pretty good on here. I don't think they've produced a podcast in quite some time because they've both like had kids and like that consumes your life, but also a solid podcast to check out. I don't know their designs, but I'm sure they share it. This next podcast is new to me. It's called Aligned by Design. This used to be a different podcast, but I think that person changed their name and then this person took the name. But she is a reflector, which I think is pretty cool. So if you guys are reflectors out there and you want a reflector perspective, that could be really cool listening to Aligned by Design. The next podcast is with Jenna Zoe. She used to have a co-host, and this used to be called Aligned by Design with her co-host, which is why the other one came up when I searched this one. Anyway, this is really helpful. She's a projector. Again, useful information, but I found that like probably the first 10 minutes, if not more, of the episode was her promoting her stuff, so which is why I stopped listening. Sorry, Boo Boo Kitten Jenna. But that's just the reality of it. But again, if you want a different perspective, that could be helpful if you are a projector and you want to listen to a projector. And last but not least, the Manifestor podcast. I've listened to a handful of episodes here. I think it just came out last year. It's pretty good. If you are a manifestor and you're just getting into it, it can be very helpful to listen to other people's journeys because a lot of the people she has on are several years into their experiment. So give that a listen, give that a noodle. And yeah, again, this is just my preferred learning method. I like auditory learning. So that's how I dove into human design, in addition to working with a human design coach for an extended period of time. Initially, it was just like 1 or 2 sessions. And then I think I bought like a 6-month intensive with her. So we'd meet every couple of weeks. And then since then, I've checked in a couple of times when I'm having a real, oh my God moment. So rather than going through a therapist, I call my human design coach and we work through some deep stuff. So good.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I'm sure that a lot of people, they will first go towards podcasting or YouTube for that matter. I personally also have one on YouTube that I really love. I highly, highly, highly recommend. But this is only if you are already experienced with human design and you want to dive deeper, because her stuff is deep. It is really intense, really in depth, but she knows what she's talking about. So if you want to check her out, check out her podcast or her YouTube channel. I don't know if she has a podcast, but YouTube channel, because there's a lot that you need to see and observe in order to understand what she's on about. Otherwise, it gets very complex and very confusing. When we then go back to our little slideshow, let's start at the beginning. So apart from the Human Design Summit that I attended, which had many different human design experts, it was a German summit though, so it wasn't anyone that was very famous. At least I haven't come across any of them afterwards. So there are certain human design individuals out there that are very well known. Among them would be, of course, Ra Uru Hu, the person that founded human design, or that kind of started channeling it for the first time. Then there is Richard Beaumont, who is also pretty well known in the human design community. There is, well, we're going to look at a few more books, but there's also Dr. Helena Haspel, which we're not going to really go deeper into, but she worked with Ra for a very, very long time. She wrote books with him and she went another route. So she went more into actually her name is Dr. Helena Haspel Porter, as far as I know. And she went down the road of wanting to scientifically prove whether human design works or doesn't work. So she's doing this work with her husband. He's a doctor, and they kind of looked at patients of his and aligned that the information that they got from the symptoms that they have and the diagnoses of these patients, and they looked at their design and correlated these symptoms with the human design chart. And this all started because they had a few cats and they wanted to help them become healthier. So then they figured, okay, if that works for animals, then it should also work for humans. And she doesn't believe in the full human design system, but she does find a lot of value in at least the centers. She's not convinced in the PHS system, so the physical health system. But she's a very interesting one to look at because she's also dividing the human design chart. She doesn't just go by one human design chart, so birth time, birth date, and birthplace. But she goes by also, of course, yes, the design time, so approximately 8 or 88 degrees before you were actually born, or 88 days approximately before you were born. That's when the design is being developed. Then she also goes by the moment that you were conceived, then even before that, or some moments after you were born. There are different time frames that are very important in your development. And she looks at those elements because she just finds a lot of information in that. And then she helps people work through her or through their challenges by looking at these different developmental phases. So I really am very curious about her program, her thoughts behind human design, but I haven't looked into it enough to be able to speak on it very well. So she is very interesting when it comes to just a new outlook on human design. And I wouldn't disqualify her. I wouldn't say that she's right because I don't know enough. But if you want to dive deeper into a different direction, except for Ra Uru Hu, that would be one direction that I personally am going to be looking into in the future, just because I like to see different aspects. What I always recommend is to start at the root, though. Really understand the foundational knowledge, understand where human design is coming from. And this doesn't, for me, it's not just regarding human design, but it goes with everything. So I always like to start with the root And this book, The Definitive Book of Human Design, written by Ra Uru Hu and Linda Bunell, this is the book that I always recommend to get started with, because he goes into, or they go into enough detail to make it relatable and understandable, but they're also not going into that much detail that it becomes overwhelming. But it's a really, really good foundational book. And if you then want to go even deeper into the foundation, human design is based on the I Ching, it's based on the Kabbalah, it's based on the Hindu chakra system, even though it diverges, it's different to the Hindu chakra system because it's based on 9 centers and the chakra system is based on 7 chakras. So that's why human design differentiates in that. But if you want to dive deeper into the root of human design, then I would recommend also looking into the traditional I Ching, the translations of the original Chinese I Ching. There are many different translations out there, so you need to find the one that resonates most with you. And this is also what the gates are described as, even in human design. So when it comes to the human design gates, you would look at the blue I Ching if you would like to dive deeper into the gates, into the exaltation and the detriment. Or the other one is the Book of Lines by Chetan Parkin. The gates and lines are also described in the definitive book of human design. So you can also find those descriptions here. But what I like to do is to just, when you're diving deeper into human design, to look at these 3 versions and see how they're described, how each gate is described, how each detriment and exaltation is described, so that you really get a full picture. And that's the same with the I Ching, because there are so many different translations out there, just to have several different translations and grasping really what it is all about, because one person is going to see it this way, the other that way, and looking at 2 or 3 versions is just going to give you a wider picture and a wider understanding of what this even means. Additionally to that, I always use the gene keys. So Richard Rudd is also a student of Ra Uru Hu's, and he decided at some point to develop the gene keys. So he decided to step away from the human design system, and he also asked Ra Uru Hu for permission. And Ra Uru Hu said, yes, you can do that. So he started to go more into, in my opinion, more into an inward work. So the gene keys is very, very spiritual in nature. It is very inward focused. Human design can also be very inward focused and self-developmental. But Richard Rudd's work is, if you're open to it, it becomes very spiritual. So there's always a shadow aspect of a gate, which can be repressed or reactive in the shadow state. Then you have a gift aspect, and then you have the siddhi, which is basically an enlightenment aspect of the gate. So when you're reading the enlightenment aspect of the gate, you may not be able to relate to it that much if you don't believe in enlightenment or into that stage of development. But at least the shadow and the gift are going to resonate, especially if you're looking at your sun and earth, personality, sun and earth gates, because those are so impactful to you. You will for sure resonate with those. So that was kind of my journey, first starting with Ra Uru Hu's foundational knowledge. So really understanding, and I still do that. I still go through many, many, many PDFs from the International School of Human Design, because I like to understand the root of things. And from there, I start to build upward. So the places to find these International Human Design PDFs, for example, would be in Facebook groups. And these are just 2 examples. There are many more Facebook groups out there. But when you're looking at these Facebook groups, Human Design and Astrology, for example, or Practical Human Design, you will see that there's a media tab or a files tab. And this is where you will be able to find a lot of files, a lot of information that is super helpful, along with as well the Blue I Ching, for example. You will be able to get that there. maybe even the Human Design, the Definitive Book of Human Design, I'm not sure. But very, very helpful, these Facebook groups. And just, diving deeper into the raw and foundation knowledge, that to me is the key. And then after I was digging into that, I also started to look at Kim Gould, and she was also a student from Ra's, or at least she was learning human design. I'm not sure if she actually met Ra in person, but when she was sitting in front of her human design chart, she was wondering, where is her ascendant in her human design chart, because it doesn't show up. And once she added the ascendant to her human design chart, she realized that she's becoming another type, and she felt like she was resonating with this type in certain instances. And that's when she then started to look at the asteroids. And Chiron, for example, is also not in the human design chart, even though if you have Neutrino Design, the app, also a fantastic resource to learn human design. If you have this app, you can now look at your human design chart with Chiron in it. So it will show you where it is and if it is creating a definition or not. And this is particularly helpful for 6 lines. When you're coming off the roof, for example, or even when you're on the roof or going through this whole journey, understanding Chiron, understanding your wound as well, the wounded healer, because it's called the wounded healer because it can give you so much strength and power once you've figured out how to heal this wound. And I love using asteroids in human design because it just gives another flavor. And to me, I'm very intrigued by the myths of Greek mythology or Roman mythology and understanding the names of the asteroids, where it's coming from. And then those asteroids, depending on where they're placed in your chart, they provide you with another depth and another flair and another insight into how you can structure your routines and habits, for example, or where your wounds lie, or what it is you should be focusing on when it comes to work or fulfilling your purpose on this planet. So there's a lot of stuff that you can learn from the asteroids, and I love working with them. So to me, Kim Gould is another fantastic resource. She has a platform online which you can join for, I think, $40 or $50 a month, and you will then have access to everything that she provides. So it's really, really good if you want to work with the feminine energy as well, because human design is heavily based on the masculine energy. The planets are very masculine in nature, not a lot of feminine energy in there. And that's why she also started to add and look at the asteroids. So the next one is the Book of Destinies. And this is again from Chetan Parkin and Carola Eastwood. But Chetan Parkin is the one that is more famous in the human design community. However, when it comes to this book, it is very, very superficial when it comes to the incarnation cross. So this is all about your incarnation cross, all about what your life purpose is. And if you want to know more about this, we just covered an episode on this, so do go check it out. We will have an episode on the incarnation cross somewhere on our platform. And we are talking about this book as well in this podcast episode, but as I said, it is superficial, it is not so in depth. And I always recommend going deeply into each gate, but also having a superficial overview of the incarnation cross, because sometimes it can be very complex to put it all together. But understanding each individual gate, additionally to understanding the overall grouping of these gates, is very helpful. Another book that goes into incarnation crosses and that is more detailed and gives a bit more insights into the individual gates and how they show up, and also gives examples of people that have these gates, is this one, Incarnation Cross, a guidebook of purpose archetypes by Brynja Magnuson. So I enjoy that also as more of a superficial one, but I feel like it goes a bit more in depth than the Book of Lines, the Book of Destiny by Chetan Parkin. So those are pretty much the recommendations I would say when it comes to starting with human design. And even if you're already deeper into it, maybe there's a few insights that you could grasp from all that we have shared here today.
Tell us what resources you guys have used already. Like, we'd love to start that conversation in the comments. Tell us what resources you've used, how you started your journey, how you came across human design. We'd love to hear and be able to respond back to you via the interwebs.
Yeah. Thank you very much for listening.
Wow, it's 40 seconds. We'll cut it off. That's aggressive. All right. Well, on that note, if you are just entering your human design journey and this is the first podcast you've listened to of ours, hit up Opportunity to reach out to Miko, and she can give you a human design reading, whether it be an intro to, a more in-depth one. P.S. She likes more in-depth ones, just saying. And that could be a really fun way to explore human design through a different lens. Alrighty, guys. Until next week.
Thank you. Bye.